of a reunion in 1996. It was almost like he was going to do another Hail Mary pass with the career and see what happens. And now in 2002, I mean, he had really not much going on. I mean, he was still touring. He was playing like county fairs and stuff. He wasn't really doing any big gigs.
Right.
But,
musically, like neither of them were where they used to be.
Right.
I mean, non-music wise, Sammy was doing all right.
Yeah, he was doing
tequila,
fine.
Right? Like his tequila company was growing.
Yeah.
And Cabo Wabo was doing well.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
musically, I mean, his album, he was putting, I mean, to Sam's credit during this time, he was putting out albums regularly. Mm-hmm. You know, for Sam, they were decent.
Right.
But, you know, let's face facts. These guys were not filling as many seats as they used to.
No.
Right? So here comes Irving Azoff, who I think was Sam's manager at the time, right?
Right, yes. We're going to get right into that. And what happened here was, and this is from Sam's book, Red. Okay, so he says, this is a quote from Sam. He said, "At this point in my career, I felt very comfortable doing anything. I didn't care about my so-called image, and I was open to all sorts of crazy ideas." And the way the tour apparently came about was Sammy was in Irving Azoff's office trying to come up with some idea for a 2002 summer tour, and someone suggested David Lee Roth. Azoff called him up, and Roth agreed to a meeting. Now, in typical Roth style, he came in all decked up like he was going on stage, and Sam is sitting there in a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops. By the way, at this time, I don't know what you'd call it, Dave, but Sam was in some sort of real, like, I don't know, he was real sloppy. You know what I mean? Like, he was just like, he was dressed like me, for Christ's sake. He's like, in shorts and a t-shirt.
He was definitely like in that Cabo beach bum, flip-flop.
Right. Yeah.
What kind of pants did he always wear? You know, the pants that don't go down all the way.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but that was like his thing at the time.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
he didn't even look like he was going on stage. He looked like he was gonna go get a pina colada or something.
Right.
Like he had that
capri pants. That's what they were. Capri.
Right.
He was wearing like.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're right. Exactly. But that was his style. That was his thing.
So apparently what happened was Roth came into the meeting. He's like all decked out, and he's wearing like boots with high heels, and he's got like scarves and a black outfit, and he looks like he's going on stage. This is just for an office meeting. And, you know, Roth, he's all about presentation and intimidation, so he went up and he says, "There's been a lot said between us. Let's forget it and take it from there." So Sammy suggested singing a few songs together, keeping it friendly, and Roth rejected it. Roth had this more of like a WWF or WWE, however you want to put it, kind of like a SmackDown thing. Sam said he envisioned something more along the lines of a WWF SmackDown, you know, Roth, as you well know, is more of a master of marketing than Sam is. Sam loves to have a party, loves to have a good time, and he's, you know, great musically, but he's never been a great, like, marketer in terms of, like, rock and roll. Like, he doesn't really, whereas Dave's, like, a lot about image, and, like, Dave wanted to, you know, sell the rivalry, where I think Sam was not all into that. Did you get that feeling?
Yes. I mean, Sam was the guy who wanted both of them to come out at the end of the concert and do a song together.
Right.
He did not see it as he didn't see it as a rivalry at all. No. He figured, look, we're both on the same bill.
Right.
Everybody knows what the story is.
Right.
That should really sell itself.
Yes.
But Dave's ego would not allow that.
No, of course not. He's David Lee Roth, you know what I mean? This fucking guy, you know how he is. You know, he wants to keep up that badass attitude.
Right. But, there has to be this tension. There has to be a fight. It has to be a battle.
Right.
That's where Dave is coming from.
Right, absolutely. So, apparently they agreed to trading off headlining. Who's opening for who? So they're going to flip-flop. Dave goes on first, or Sam goes on first. They go back and forth. So the first date was agreed to by a coin toss, right? And they did this on the Howard Stern show, which was sort of interesting. So anyway, but before we get to that whole thing, Sam said, "I knew all about his business." He's talking about Roth. He says, "A friend told me he booked him in Tahoe for $10,000. $100,000. But apparently Roth insisted on being paid just as much as Sam, and Irving convinced Sam to go along with it. And this is what Irving said. He said, "You're going to blow him off the stage. He's got this bullshit cover band. The whole world's going to finally see that you're the better of the two. Let's get it out and prove it, Sammy. Come on. Don't get greedy now. It's about your future. All the promoters are going to say Sammy is better than him and he's the one doing the business. And we're going to pay him more," meaning going forward. You're going to double your money the next time you go out by going out this time with Dave. What he's basically saying is, do this tour with Dave, and it'll bring up your name, and they'll get a lot of press on this, and more promoters they'll end up paying you more going forward. So I think that Irving was trying to sell him on that. What did you think?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
right. Irving is, that's what he's good at, right?
Yeah,
he knows.
That's his whole thing, right?
Right.
Now, I always thought the name for this tour was horrendous. The name of the tour is called Song for Song, the Heavyweight Champs of Rock and Roll. First of all, too long a title. Second of all, they don't play rock and roll, they play hard rock. So, and it's like Song for Song. I don't know who came up with that, but that was a real clunky title. What do you think?
It was, it's true, because nobody ever referred to the tour that way. Mm-mm. It was always the Sam and Dave tour.
Or the Sans Halen tour.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. That was
but either one. So,
right.
My thought on that was probably the only title that they could get those two guys to agree on.
You're right. Because whose name goes first, this and that, it's probably something like that.
Right. They couldn't agree on anything, those guys. So that they probably went through a whole list of tour titles, and that was the only one they could agree upon, because they were probably just so tired of hearing it. But
yeah. So apparently, one of the big issues with booking this tour was Dave was pushing to close in L.A. and close in New York. So the way they worked L.A. is they booked 2 nights in L.A. and each guy got their closing night. But they were supposed to play Jones Beach. In fact, the tour was supposed to end at Jones Beach. And the whole goddamn date fell apart because Dave wouldn't give in. Sam refused to let Dave win, so they literally skipped New York. How stupid was that?
Because it was supposed to be Sam's turn.
Right.
And then Dave said, "I won't do it unless I close."
Right.
And Sam was like, "No, it's my turn." And they just didn't do the show.
Absolutely.
That's the childlike level of what's going on here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's so funny. And Sammy said, Roth wasn't going over all that great. He lost his voice and he could no longer sing well anyway. We'll get into all these more specifics. But what happened was they had a press conference, okay? So they had this press conference at the Sky Bar, and they came out, and Dave was doing his Dave stuff. He's saying, "Sammy and I are like the fraternity brothers that have been through the same shitty hazing. I think this tour is going to last a lot longer than Marilyn Manson and Courtney Love." Now, that doesn't mean much right now, but back in the time, Marilyn Manson and Courtney Love were supposed to do a tour, and that whole thing went to hell, and so that was sort of a joke back then. Now it doesn't mean anything because no one remembers that. And Sam said, "This is about making a statement." Remember when he said that, because you'll see Sam has an agenda here, and we'll get to that whole thing. So, Dave's doing his shucking and jive routine. What we are about is spirit and attitude. And he was all dressed in black leather, and he's surrounded by women, and with these fluorescent yellow spandex cat suits. And he had like this little person guy who was dressed like Andy Warhol. It's just really crazy. He's out of his mind. So he says, "It goes beyond the last band we were in. It's a state of mind and a point of view that Van Halen has misplaced twice." Hagar, was talking about how he had approached Dave. He said, "I had asked him years ago," and Dave agreed, "Yeah, Sam, you had that idea, but the timing was wrong. Now the timing is right." They went back and forth, and they said, they're going to, of course, the question is, you're going to perform together on stage? And Hagar says, "I don't trust him." And he, goes back and forth. But they're they're almost playing it up like a boxing press conference where you see like a Holyfield fight, where they're going back and forth, or a Tyson fight. Dave went out there and said, "Any rivalry that may have occurred is nothing that can't be cured with a little Cabo Wabo tequila." And he's giving Sam a boost for his brand. And and apparently they were all set to each do 90-minute sets, alternating the headlining slot. And Dave says, "We're gonna flip a blonde in the next city, and I'm gonna call tails." And that's a classic Roth line, you know. You have to think of this as 2 title fights with no undercard. This is a co-headlining tour here. So he's playing it up, and Sam is just sort of going along with it. He's kind of almost passive. Like, he's just, I mean, Dave's all decked out, and Sam's just sitting there like in a yellow t-shirt. He's just kind of weird, right?
Well, that's the 2 different styles between, I mean, so Sam shows up.
Right.
In like you said, in a yellow t-shirt, I think red pants, right? The red capri pants. Like you said, look like he just like he's going to get a drink, right? It's just him. Dave shows up
the whole
in the black outfit with the triplets, dressed like like Catwomen or whatever's going on there. The little person dressed like Andy Warhol. He shows up with his entourage. Right. And if you ever look at, the pictures from, which album was it? I think it was the Diamond Dave album.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the people he's showing up with.
Right.
And that just illustrates the difference of night and day between these 2 guys.
Right. Surprisingly,
and you say it's like a fight promo, like a fight announcement.
Right.
Well, of course, because they're the heavyweight champs of rock and roll.
Exactly.
Right? So I think they're kind of, trying to make it something like that. Well, Dave is anyway.
Right, exactly. So, Dave's playing it up. He says, "I'm going to do almost exclusively the Van Halen catalog. It's about time we show up and not just do renditions. I have a hot band that will serve it large." And Sam says he's going to do some of the Van Halen songs I did. And he goes, since Dave actually wrote those songs, that they went back and forth a bit. And then he says, "What you have is quintessential Americana, and you couldn't pick a more appropriate time for that," Roth had said. And he says, "Between the 2 of us, there's probably something like 80 to 100 million albums sold. And whether you've owned it or not, you've heard Sammy or my voice blaring out of your pickup truck in front of you at the drive-in, at the local Burger King for how many summers?" He loves to talk about that shit. This was the best line of the whole thing. He says, when they asked him about the brothers, he says, "I'm not sure what the brothers think, and I'm not sure I really care." And then when asked why Gary Cherone wasn't part of the bill, Roth said that the former Extreme frontman was busy doing the vagina monologues, which I thought was so mean but funny. So that was kind of crazy. And then the tour kicked off at Cuyahoga Falls in Ohio on May 29th, and it went all through June. And then kind of almost skipped July. I always thought this was weird. They kind of like skipped July and then picked it up late July on the 25th of July in Oklahoma City. And they went straight through to August 28th at the Mansfield, Massachusetts Tweeter Center there. And it was weird. They had a bunch of dates at the end of the tour that got lopped off. I don't know what happened. There were all these New York dates like the Darien Center and Syracuse. And I don't know what happened with that.
Apparently, the story is that Sam canceled those shows because he was having vocal issues or he was sick or something like that.
Oh, really?
But I remember they were canceled. Well, I shouldn't say I remember. I was reading up on this, trying to see what was going on at the time at vhlinks.com. Right. And I think those shows were canceled at the last minute. I mean, there were people on their way to the show.
Oh, my God.
And didn't realize,
Jeez.
This was like, I mean, cell phones were around, but not like smartphones we have now.
Right.
Certainly, you weren't checking Facebook or anything for announcements like this. At least one of those shows was canceled at the last minute because a lot of people were, peeved that they thought they were going to see the show. Yeah. So I think it was on Sam's part they had canceled it. Wow. The story was his voice went out or he was sick or something like that.
Right. Well, I tell you, one of the most classic things, if you guys can look it up, is David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar on the Howard Stern show together. Now, that was, I think, even more interesting than the press conference. So what happened was Howard had Dave in the studio, and he had Sam call in. So, Howard, he's a fucking genius at what he does. So he knows how to break everything down and really get into the good questions. And he has a manipulative way of talking to get all kinds of cool stuff out of people. He's a genius. So, and Robin is always there interjecting. So Robin said, what is the big deal with headlining? Like, what is the big bonus? And they said, full darkness and full house. So that's also, and obviously, the cachet of closing the show. And Sammy said, I'm not afraid to follow anybody, but I bet you somebody's afraid to follow me. So here's a little jab in there, and David Lee Roth said, going from me to you